Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive today. We're going to be taking a bit of a journey into the world of David Lynch,
A true icon.
a true icon. You know, his recent passing,
Yeah.
it left kind of a void in the art world, wouldn't you say?
It did. Yeah, it's hard to believe he's gone.
It is.
His work, even decades later, I mean, it still feels
It's
so,
like so relevant,
yeah, fresh, so relevant.
fresh and relevant. There's this timeless quality
Yeah.
to his films, his art. You watch a Lynch film, you're not just watching a story, you're experiencing it,
Yeah.
and it stays with you. And it makes you kind of question things.
Absolutely. He had this incredible ability to blend the ordinary with the unsettling and to create these dreamlike worlds that feel both familiar and utterly strange.
Yes, yes. So our guide for this deep dive is a podcast script
Okay.
dedicated to Lynch's legacy called Lynchian Lens. It's packed with insights.
Great.
So let's start at the beginning. Lynch was born in 1946
Right.
in Missoula, Montana. So think like, classic image of small town America. White picket fences, the whole bit.
Right. Right.
But even Lynch, he described his childhood as having this strange and unsettling undertone.
It's interesting how that duality,
Yes.
that contrast between the idyllic surface and the darkness beneath, became such a defining characteristic of his work. I mean, you see it over and over again.
Yeah. You know, it's like he was always searching for the cracks in the facade, the places where things weren't quite right.
Right.
And that, fascination with the hidden, the unsettling, it really started to take shape in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So he went there to study art, first in Boston, but then at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts.
Okay.
And Philadelphia, the 60s, it was a city in transition. Decaying industrial landscape, sense of urban decay. And Lynch found it both disturbing and inspiring.
It's fascinating. He described it as a very sick, twisted, fear-ridden place.
Yeah. Not exactly a tourist brochure quote, but for Lynch, it was a catalyst for his creativity. And the script actually mentions that the city's atmosphere pushed him to experiment with making his art move, which led him to filmmaking.
You can really see the influence of Philadelphia. In his early work, especially in his first short film, 6 Men Getting Sick, 6 times, which is this bizarre and a darkly humorous animation that really foreshadows his surrealist style.
Surrealism, for those who maybe aren't as familiar, is all about tapping into the subconscious, exploring, dreams and nightmares, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. And Lynch was a master of that.
Absolutely. And his journey into the depths of surrealism really took off when he moved to Los Angeles in 1970 to study at the American Film Institute Conservatory. That's where he started work on his first feature-length film, Eraserhead.
Eraserhead.
Yeah.
This is something else entirely.
It
5
is.
years to make,
Wow.
released in 1977, and when it came out, it was like nothing anyone had ever seen before.
Yeah.
Stark black and white visuals, this incredibly unsettling soundtrack, and a story that was more about mood and atmosphere
Yeah.
than any kind of traditional narrative.
Some people have described it as an industrial fever dream, which I think is very fitting. You're thrown into this nightmarish world, and you're never quite sure what's real and what's not.
Right.
But that's the power of Lynch's work. He doesn't give you the easy answers.
Right.
He wants you to feel it, to experience it on a visceral level.
That industrial fever dream description, it's interesting you mention that, because the script, talks about how important sound is in Lynch's films.
Yeah.
It's not just, background noise. It's almost like another character,
Right.
creating this unsettling atmosphere that gets into your skin.
He understood the power of sound to manipulate emotions, to heighten tension, to create a sense of unease, and he used it brilliantly, particularly in Eraserhead.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the baby's cries in that film. Pure nightmare fuel.
Oh, I have to agree with you there.
Yeah.
Not an easy watch.
No.
It's disturbing. It's challenging.
Yeah.
But it is powerful and incredibly original. Didn't become a mainstream success.
Right.
But it gained this devoted cult following.
It did.
And it really solidified Lynch's distinct artistic voice.
It showed that he wasn't afraid to take risks, to push boundaries, to delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche.
Yes.
And it's that fearlessness that would go on to define his career.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about his transition into more mainstream projects. Started with The Elephant Man in 1980.
It's fascinating how he went from this incredibly surreal experimental film like Eraserhead to a film like The Elephant Man, which is this deeply moving and humanistic story.
I know. big change.
It is.
And it was a huge success, critically and commercially. Got 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Director, which really, put Lynch on the map in Hollywood. Showed that he could tell compelling stories without sacrificing his artistic vision.
The Elephant Man proved he wasn't just a provocateur. He was a storyteller who could connect with audiences on an emotional level.
Yeah. But his journey through Hollywood, it wasn't always smooth sailing. His next film, Dune, in 1984, big budget adaptation of a popular sci-fi novel, but ended up being a pretty difficult experience for him.
Dune is a complex story, and the studio interfered quite a bit, which ultimately compromised Lynch's vision. He's actually disowned the film, so it's often considered the black sheep of his filmography.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is.
Because there are glimpses of brilliance in there, but it feels weighed down by the studio's expectations.
You can feel his frustration.
You can.
On the project.
Absolutely.
But that frustration led to something truly remarkable. Blue Velvet. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Blue Velvet, 1986.
Yeah.
Took him back to his roots, back to that fascination with the darkness lurking beneath the surface of seemingly perfect small-town America, considered a neo-noir masterpiece.
Neo-noir films often take place in modern settings, but they draw inspiration from classic film noir. They're characterized by their dark, cynical tone, exploration of crime and corruption, and their use of stylized visuals.
Right.
Blue Velvet fits that mold perfectly.
It does. You have this idyllic suburban setting, but underneath, there's this whole world of violence, perversion, and mystery. And Lynch doesn't shy away from any of it.
He dives right into the underbelly of this seemingly perfect world, exposing the hypocrisy and the darkness that lurks beneath.
And it's not just the content. The way he uses color, light, and shadow in Blue Velvet, it's masterful. It creates this incredibly unsettling atmosphere that's both beautiful and terrifying.
He earned his second Oscar nomination for Best Director for Blue Velvet, and it really cemented his status as a visionary filmmaker, showed that he could make a film that was both commercially successful and artistically daring.
And then, of course, there's Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't just a TV show, it was a phenomenon.
It was.
When it premiered in 1990.
That pop culture phenomenon.
It was. And it's a perfect example of how Lynch could take a seemingly familiar genre, in this case, the murder mystery, and just completely subvert it, turn it into something totally unique and unexpected.
He took the conventions of soap operas, the intrigue of detective stories, and injected it with his own brand of surrealism and dark humor, and audiences went wild for it.
Yeah. Twin Peaks was this perfect storm of creative genius, cultural zeitgeist, Lynch's ability to tap into the collective subconscious. It was a water cooler show. Everyone was talking about it, trying to figure out who killed Laura Palmer.
Right.
And it wasn't just the mystery that captivated audiences. It was the characters, the atmosphere, the sense that anything could happen.
The town of Twin Peaks felt like a character itself.
It did. It did.
This strange and wonderful place where the mundane and the supernatural coexisted.
And even decades later, he revisited that world with Twin Peaks, The Return in 2017.
Yes.
This 18-hour limited series that picked up 25 years after the original.
Right.
Just as bizarre, beautiful, and brilliant as the first. A testament to Lynch's enduring commitment to his vision and his willingness to keep pushing boundaries.
Twin Peaks. The Return wasn't just a nostalgia trip. It was a bold and ambitious exploration of grief, trauma, and the passage of time. It was Lynch at his most experimental and uncompromising.
And what's amazing is that he created this masterpiece when he was in his 70s. Shows that his creative fire never really dimmed.
It also proves that he never lost that desire to challenge audiences, to make them think, to make them feel uncomfortable, and to make them question everything they thought they knew about storytelling.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. From his early experimental films to his, forays into Hollywood, his groundbreaking television work. But Lynch wasn't just a filmmaker, was he?
He wasn't. He was a true multimedia artist.
He was.
Painter, a musician, a photographer, a writer. He was constantly exploring different creative outlets. And it's fascinating how all of these different mediums fed into each other, creating this cohesive and unmistakable Lynchian world.
So let's unpack that a bit. What makes something Lynchian? What are the recurring elements that kind of define his style, his vision?
That's a great question. I think Lynchian is all about embracing the surreal, the unsettling, and the dreamlike. It's about finding beauty in the grotesque, humor in the darkest of places, and meaning in the seemingly meaningless.
It's that contrast, isn't it? That juxtaposition of the familiar and the strange.
Yeah.
Like a 1950s diner
Yeah.
with a demonic presence lurking in the shadows.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of unease, a feeling that something is not quite right, even if you can't put your finger on it. And it's that feeling that stays with you long after the credits have rolled. And it's not just the visuals, or the stories themselves. Lynch, he was a master of using sound and music to create atmosphere, evoke emotions.
Think about the eerie industrial soundscapes in Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Or the haunting theme music from Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah.
So distinctive, so evocative, almost like you hear a Lynch soundtrack, even when you're not watching his films, just thinking about them.
Yeah, he understood that sound is just as important as visuals, to create a truly immersive and unforgettable experience.
Right.
And he often collaborated with incredible musicians, like Angelo Badalamenti, who composed music for Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, among others.
Oh, yeah, and those collaborations created this sonic world that was like just as important as the visual one. And I think that's part of what makes his work so transportive. You're not just watching it, you're feeling it on this deeper, almost subconscious level.
And it's interesting how he used music to create this sense of nostalgia, even when the visuals were anything but. Like in Blue Velvet, you have this beautiful romantic song playing, but the images, they're dark and disturbing.
It's that contrast again, that unsettling juxtaposition that he does so well. Like he's playing with our expectations, subverting the familiar, making us question what we see and hear.
Exactly. And that's what makes his work so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's not just entertainment. It's an experience. It stays with you.
It does.
It makes you think about the world differently.
It does. Okay, so we've talked about his films, his use of sound, this exploration of the surreal. But what about the characters? Lynch's characters, they're often just as strange and memorable as the world they inhabit.
They are. His characters are rarely straightforward, often very flawed, complex, and driven by hidden desires. Think about Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
This quirky, coffee-loving FBI agent who's also deeply intuitive and spiritual.
Right. Or Dorothy Valens in Blue Velvet.
Oh, yes.
A woman who's both a victim
Yeah.
and a manipulator, trapped in this cycle of abuse and desire.
Lynch's characters are never just one thing. They're full of contradictions, and that's what makes them so fascinating. They reflect the complexities of human nature, this duality of good and evil, this darkness that can reside within, even the most seemingly innocent people.
It's like he's peeling back the layers of the human psyche, showing us the darkness and the light that exists within us all.
And he does it without judgment. He doesn't offer, these easy answers or moral pronouncements. He presents these characters in all their flaws and complexities, and lets the audience draw their own conclusions.
I think that's one of the reasons his work resonates so deeply with people. We see ourselves in all our messiness and contradictions reflected in his characters.
He reminds us that life isn't black and white.
Yeah.
It's full of shades of gray.
Yes.
And that's okay.
It is. As we're talking about this, it's striking how Lynch's work, it continues to be relevant, even though a lot of it was created decades ago. What is it about his films and his art that make them so enduring?
I think it's his ability to tap into the subconscious, to explore those universal themes.
Yeah.
Fear, desire, and the search for identity.
Yeah.
His work speaks to something primal within us, something that transcends time and place.
He also wasn't afraid to tackle those difficult subjects, explore the dark side of human nature.
Right.
And he did it in a way that was both unsettling and strangely beautiful.
He showed us that beauty can exist in the most unexpected places, even in the darkest corners of our minds.
And he challenged us to question everything.
Yeah.
To look beyond the surface.
Right.
And embrace the mystery and ambiguity of life.
Yeah, it's not about finding all the answers. It's about the journey, about exploring the unknown.
Right.
And accepting that sometimes the most important questions are the ones that have no easy solutions.
Yeah. There's this quote by Lynch that really kind of sums up his philosophy. He said, I don't know why people expect art to make sense.
They accept the fact that life doesn't make sense.
Right. It's a reminder that art doesn't always have to provide answers or tie up all the loose ends.
Right.
Sometimes it's more about asking questions, provoking thought, and leaving the audience with a sense of wonder and unease.
And in a world that's increasingly obsessed with logic and reason, I think that's a really valuable message.
It is. He reminds us that it's okay to embrace the mystery, to sit with the uncomfortable, and acknowledge that we don't always have all the answers. So for our listeners who are maybe just discovering David Lynch's work, where would you recommend they start?
That's a tough one. His work is so diverse. I think Blue Velvet is a great entry point. You know, it's a classic example of his style, his exploration of that dark side of Americana, his
Yeah.
ability to create a world that's both beautiful and terrifying.
Blue Velvet is definitely one of my favorites. It's a film that I keep coming back to,
It's good.
and I always find something new in it.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling
I
adventurous,
could dive into Eraserhead.
oh, Eraserhead, yes!
Just be prepared for a truly surreal and unforgettable experience.
It's definitely not for everyone,
Yeah,
but it is a testament to Lynch's originality
it is.
and willingness to push the boundaries of cinema.
Yes. And of course, you can't go wrong with Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah. Twin Peaks, it's a cultural phenomenon for a reason.
It is.
This unique blend of humor, mystery,
Yeah.
surrealism.
Yep.
That's just so captivating.
Mm.
And it's a great example of how Lynch can take, this familiar genre like the murder mystery and completely turn it on its head.
For those who want to explore his work beyond film, I highly recommend checking out his paintings and photography.
Oh, yes.
They're just as evocative and unsettling as his films.
They are. And you see those recurring themes of darkness, beauty, and the subconscious in all of his work, regardless of the medium.
And his music is worth exploring as well. It's an essential part of the Lynchian experience.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of David Lynch, what do you think is his most significant legacy? What is it about his work that will continue to resonate with audiences for generations to come?
I think it's his courage to be different, to embrace the strange and the unconventional. He never compromised his vision, even when it meant facing criticism or commercial failure. He showed us that it's okay to be different, to challenge the norms, and to create art that's both personal and universal.
So as we conclude our deep dive into the world of David Lynch, I'm curious, what stands out to you as his most significant contribution to art and storytelling? What will his legacy be?
Well, for me, it's the way he blurred the lines between genres and mediums. He was a filmmaker, yes, but also a painter, a musician, a writer, and each form informed the others, creating this richly textured, unmistakably Lynchian tapestry. He showed us that art doesn't have to fit neatly into boxes. It can be fluid, multifaceted, and constantly evolving.
It's like he gave us permission to break the rules, to experiment, to find our own unique voices.
Exactly. He wasn't afraid to take risks, to follow his own intuition, even if it led him down unconventional paths. And
Yeah.
that's incredibly inspiring, especially in a world that often pressures us to conform.
He also had this incredible ability to make the mundane feel magical,
Yeah.
the everyday feel extraordinary.
We think about that iconic scene in Twin Peaks, where Agent Cooper first arrives in town and he's like utterly delighted by the scent of Douglas fir trees and a damn fine cup of coffee.
He finds poetry in the ordinary, beauty in the unexpected. It's a reminder to slow down, to pay attention, to appreciate the little things that often go unnoticed.
And in a world that's, constantly bombarding us with information and stimulation,
Yes,
that message feels more important than ever.
it does. For listeners who are, intrigued but maybe a bit intimidated by Lynch's work, what advice would you give them? Where's a good place to start?
It really depends on your taste.
Yeah.
If you enjoy classic film noir with a modern twist,
Yeah.
Blue Velvet is a great starting point. But if you're ready to dive headfirst into the deep end of surrealism,
Yes.
Eraserhead is an unforgettable, albeit challenging experience.
And for those who want something a little more accessible, with that signature blend of humor and mystery and small-town strangeness,
Right.
Twin Peaks.
Exactly. And remember, don't go in accepting all the answers. Let yourself get lost in the atmosphere, the characters, the world that Lynch created. Allow yourself to feel, to question, to embrace the mystery.
There's no right or wrong way to experience Lynch's work, It's about finding your own personal connection,
Right.
your own interpretation.
He once said, films are like dreams, like poetry. They don't have to make literal sense.
And that's what makes them so powerful. They tap into our emotions,
Yeah.
our subconscious, our deepest fears and desires.
So as we say goodbye to David Lynch,
Yes.
let's celebrate his legacy of creative fearlessness, his unwavering commitment to his vision, and his enduring ability to make us question, dream, and see the world in a whole new light.
He was a true original, a master of the unexpected.
Absolutely.
And his work will continue to inspire and challenge us for generations to come.
It will.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the mystery alive.